actress and multidisciplinary artist who works in the Canadian arts industry. And I'm here to answer one simple question. As someone working in the creative arts industry in Canada, do you have a responsibility to promote Canadian values in your work? Yes, I do think that artists in Canada have a responsibility to promote Canadian values in our work. Mackenzie, what even are Canadian values? Look, I understand, I get the question. I'm glad you asked because I also had to ask Google, okay? And the AI overview told me that Canadian values center around equality, diversity, respect, and peace. Okay, I don't usually listen to AI, but they've referenced the Canadian Charter of Rights. Don't listen to the AI. Basically what I'm saying is that a little bit of representation goes a long way for our culture, and I think that if you're an artist, that you can incorporate that by putting it on there somewhere. I don't know, etch it into your Potter. I'll put, I am Canadian from Canada in your bio. Represent, because we've got some really cool things going on in our arts industry here in Canada, okay? But first, back to the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, because Canada's artistic values are literally written all over our laws and institutions. This is an example of cultural policy, how governments use legislation and public institutions to shape, support, and protect national culture. This guy protects our freedom of expression with this statement here in 2B, a right that keeps our art fearless and authentic. And this guy, the Canadian Multiculturalism Act of 1988, commits to celebrating cultural diversity as a collective strength. Supporting diverse and culturally plural artists is not
symbolic
or woke. It's literally embedded into Canadian policy. This reflects what I said all the way back in the good old days of Learning Activity 1 when I argued that the arts are fundamental to forming identity in public life and makes culture something that we can all enjoy. I'd like to think that my work falls somewhere between absurd storytelling and advocacy. I would love to explain that, but I'm still figuring that out, honestly. But here's what I do know. I want to advocate for policies in Canada by Canada. I want to protect and uplift the artists who are doing the cultural and emotional heavy lifting. I flip-flop between wanting to make radical art and wanting to make radical change, and I just want to find a way to do both. My education, my creative work, you and your mother, and my lived experiences have all pushed me in this direction of creative, absurd storytelling, social research, and cultural awareness. I'm looking to create long-term impact, not only in my own projects, but in the policies that shape how Canadian art thrives. Throughout this course, I have developed a reverence and preference for Canadian art that I honestly never expected. Not because I don't love it, but because I've always had trouble defining myself as a Canadian in the past, because I am a freaking American. Thank you, BCAR 3063, because now I have the verbiage to identify as culturally plural, which is great because now I don't feel like I'm cosplaying a Canadian. But what I've realized is that being a Canadian is not a static identity. It's a practice, you know, it's a lifestyle. It's something we build every time that we tell our stories, honestly. In conclusion, artists have power and responsibility. Not just to entertain, but to build trust and national confidence. That's exactly why I argued in my research paper that an updated mandate for the CBC is necessary to culturally relevant media so that we make sure that Canadian identity has a chance to be heard. Little side note, I was literally just there to film The Price is Right, and it was filled with Canadian representation, and it was very, very cool, very fun. So yes, I do think that we are responsible for promoting Canadian values. But that means more than just putting a poutine as an Easter egg in every single one of your films. It's sad, I know, but stay with me, okay? It means keeping diversity, truth, and connection alive in our creative work. Art does not just represent culture. It creates it. So if we want to keep being who we say we are, which is inclusive, democratic, and identifiable, then artists have to keep representing that in every story